Well, in summary, she had her faults. So do we all. We might say, well, she must have been pretty bad to be stricken with leprosy. She had her faults, but so do we all. That's really the only indication I see of a problem. And I wish if I were included in someone's book that they only had one chapter that was the sins of Douglas Jacoby. That would be very encouraging. But that's not the case. We know our hearts. We know that we all fall short. She had her faults, but overall, she was a faithful sister, a faithful woman of faith, and she left quite an impression on the Jews, the Christians, and even, much later, of course, on the Muslims, who speak often of Miriam, as they call her. What is going on here? The Quranic confusion about Miriam. A little comment on women in leadership, because in Micah 6:4, we read, and this is the Lord speaking, I brought you up out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam. So in Micah 6, Miriam is actually mentioned as one of the leaders of Israel. Similar to Deborah in the book of Judges, chapter 4. Of course, that's much later, and she was alone. One thing we learn about God is that He encourages us to rejoice in spiritual victories. Miriam led the women of Israel in song. Such expressiveness is not only natural, but it's healthy, because we relate to God not just intellectually, but also on the emotional level. Miriam seems to have had that one down. Next, back in the days of inspiration, before the completion of the Bible, of Scripture, God spoke through men and women alike. Miriam is not the only prophetess in the Old Testament, and you might want to do a search in a concordance and find some of the others. There are quite a few, and there's some in the New Testament as well. Third, God does not exempt leaders from the rules, and we saw this in our previous podcast on Aaron as well. There's one standard for everybody, and even under the old system, in Judaism, of course, there was a clergy and a laity, there was a priesthood, in distinction to Christianity, but all were expected to be holy. Everyone was to be righteous. Privilege of position is not an exemption from the rules. If anything, it's a higher calling, just as those who teach will be judged more strictly. James 3:1. And last, when a leader sins publicly and repents publicly, in this case Aaron spoke, but Miriam, we assume, must have apologized also after being rebuked by God directly. When a leader sins and repents, all the people of God know about it. But before that process is complete, it's difficult for the people of God to move on. Just as we read in this passage that they did not move on without Miriam. The people did not move on until she was brought back, until she was restored.